Hello, welcome to this module on operational excellence applied to agriculture. And in these classes, in these upcoming videos, I want to share with you a new way of thinking for us to achieve better results in our business, to have engaged, involved people, creating a mindset of continuous improvement. My name is Enrique Zapparoli Marquez. I'm an agronomist graduated in Piracicaba at SELC, and for the last 10-12 years, I have been working with leaders from all over Brazil, in different businesses in different regions, on how to create a culture of continuous improvement within agriculture. Of course, with all the cultural challenges that exist in agriculture, I want to tell you a little about how we have been doing this. I am part of a cooperative called Cooperativa Terra Ideal, which is an educational cooperative focused on training leaders who are working on farms. We are a group of farmers and educators who are putting this new way of managing the business into practice, achieving very interesting results. I started my career working with dairy farms with Professor Paulo Machado, who is now the coordinator of Clínica do Leite Lab. Professor Paulo developed and brought this Toyota method, which was based on Toyota's thinking, to milk production, to agricultural production. And I spent almost 10 years working with Professor Paulo on these dairy farms, training and empowering dairy producers, and then more recently, in 2016, the Sequita Group. In São Gotardo, which is a major producer of vegetables, carrots, beets, garlic, they approached us to apply what they were already practicing in dairy to agriculture. And it was the first project where we started to adapt this way of managing to agricultural activities, operations. And from there, other farmers began to put this into practice. And at the end of 2021, we brought these farmers together to create the Terra Ideal Cooperative, which is a cooperative where the classroom of our school is the cooperative farms. So these are farmers who are opening their businesses to train other farmers, other business leaders. Today, the cooperative has courses in different regions of the country to develop and train leaders from all over the country. And the foundation of all this, as I mentioned, comes from Toyota. Toyota is well known for car production and often high-quality cars, right? But Toyota is also, worldwide, a great reference for operational excellence. Today, it is one of the car manufacturers with the highest process efficiency in the world and one of the companies with the greatest efficiency. A phrase I really like is, good is the enemy of great, right? We have to learn from those who are great. It's no use just looking at those who are good. Oh, I'm going to be inspired by my neighbor here because he is very good. He is a skilled guy. That's fine. It's nice. I have to learn from him too. But who is excellent? Who are the best? Because it's easy for us to be good. Sometimes we ask, right? Do you consider yourself a good person? I consider myself a good person. I never stole, I never killed, I never hit my wife. Well, but then it's easy to be good, right? Looking at it that way, it's easy to be good. Then I'm also a good person. But are you a good person compared to Mother Teresa of Calcutta? Hey, hold on. No, now I don't know. Now I need to think. So that's it. We look to Toyota because it is the big reference. They are very good. They are excellent. So let's learn from what they are doing. The first thing I wanted to show you from Toyota is this phrase here. This is Toyota's purpose. Make good cars by making good people. Here we already have some key things to understand Toyota's way of thinking. First, make good cars. Good for whom? For the car to be good, it has to be good for the driver. It has to be good for the customer. So the first part of the purpose is focused on the customer. I need to understand what my customer wants so I can produce what they value. And the second part of the phrase is making good people. Toyota understood that if it did not develop the people who are on the production line every day executing the processes, it would never be excellent. It would never be able to compete in the market with other major manufacturers. And she started to look at people not as labor, as screw tighteners, because then a machine really does the job better, with more consistency. But hold on, I have people there. There are many people working in my business who have this here look, has the ability to think about how to improve the process itself. And when they understood this is not recent. This is from back in 1920, 30, 40, that they have been doing this almost 100 years, developing people to achieve a result that I will show you, and that, if this doesn't convince, I think nothing else will. I will compare two companies here, Toyota with Volkswagen, two major automakers, two big competitors in the market. In the year 2023, Toyota produced 9.23 million cars worldwide, combining all brands, all lines. Meanwhile, Volkswagen produced 9.3, almost the same. In other words, they are two automakers of the same size, right? The big difference is here. Toyota, worldwide, has 3,600 employees, 360,000 employees, while Volkswagen has 680,000 employees worldwide. Doing a quick back-of-the-envelope calculation here, dividing one by the other, this means that a Toyota employee produces 25 cars per year, while a Volks employee produces 13 cars per year. Half. This means that Toyota is producing double that of one of its biggest competitors. Look at the difference. This is operational excellence. We need to understand how. What does Toyota have that's different? Is it technology? Is it the processes? Is it the people? It's the way of, if I don't understand what Toyota is doing differently, I won't be able to do this in my business. We have to learn from these guys. Now imagine if you had a neighbor who is twice as productive as you are. How are you going to compete with this guy? Twice. Double. Look at your productivity per acre, per area, and imagine that your neighbor produces double that. How do you compete in terms of cost, price, labor? It's impossible. Toyota is doing this. How? What are the differences? Could it be technology? Could it be that Toyota has more robots? More 5.0? I don't know what. Blah, blah, blah. We recently visited Toyota in Sorocaba. Sorocaba, I'm not talking about Toyota in Japan. I'm talking about Toyota. Sorocaba, Brazil. And when we got there, what we saw was this. We saw a factory with handwritten boards on the wall. Simple, with people working. Of course, there is technology, but nothing more advanced than what another manufacturer might have. The difference is in the people. The difference is in the way people think. And here are some data from the Toyota factory in Sorocaba, Brazil, for you to see. Toyota here produces a car every 108 seconds. In other words, every 1 minute and 48 seconds, a car rolls off the production line. It's very fast. They are producing 600 and some cars per day. With the production time of a car, the assembly time of a car is 4 hours. So a car is ready every 1 minute and 48 seconds. But that's because you have several cars on the production line, and the time from when the car arrives to start being assembled until it is ready is 4 hours. And something interesting happened. We were there walking around the factory with our guide. He was showing us a series of things, and we stopped in a warehouse, like huge, a big warehouse. And he said, "Look, this here is our stock. It's our stock of parts." It was very large. And he asked, "How much inventory do you think we have here in this warehouse?" We looked and said, "Oh, there must be about 15 days of inventory here, right? 15 days of parts for production." He said, "No." "Oh, then maybe, I don't know, a week." Number, he said, "We have 4 hours. We have 4 hours of stock." That shocked us. "What do you mean 4 hours? Are you crazy? A factory with a few thousand people working? 4 hours of stock? What if it stops? What if a supplier is late? Does everything stop? How do you survive? It's impossible. It's a very big risk." And he told us the following. He said, "If a supplier is late and everything stops, that's exactly what we want to happen." "What do you mean?" "You want a factory with hundreds of people working to stop." "Yes, we want it to stop because if it doesn't stop, we don't see that there's a problem. If it doesn't stop, we lose the opportunity to improve the process. If I had 15 days of stock and a supplier delayed delivery by 1 day, I wouldn't even know. Now I have an assembly line that takes 4 hours. If a supplier delays delivery by 1 hour, I find out. Because we want processes with flow, with rhythm, and everything we can do to improve the flow in the processes, we will do. But the first thing is to make the problems appear. Just with this, we can already see that the way of thinking is different. They want the problems to appear. They don't want to hide problems. They don't want to justify problems. They want to find the cause of the problems so that they don't happen again. This showed us something impressive, which was a phrase they finished there. At the end of the visit, we formed a circle. We were with several farmers from different regions of Brazil visiting the factory and then doing our lessons learned at the end of the visit. And there was a farmer who raised his hand, Reginaldo from Solo Vivo, who is also a member of Terra Ideal. He said, "You know what impressed me the most? That my farm, my site, is 40 minutes from this factory. The people who work here in the factory, whom I saw delivering these results, live in the same neighborhoods, studied in the same schools as the people who work on my farm. But there we are not producing a car every 1 minute and 48 seconds. There we are not producing 25 cars per year." And they ended the visit by saying this, "Look, because our management system makes us achieve extraordinary results with ordinary people. Extraordinary results with ordinary people. And that's what we want to have. How can I achieve extraordinary results with ordinary people? If we deeply understand what Toyota is doing, we can bring that to the farm." And that's what hundreds of producers in Brazil are doing today, with impressive results. The members of our cooperative have been doing it and are opening doors to teach other farmers how to do it. And the last comment on this photo here, which took me a while to notice, I used it for a long time, and on top of it there's a phrase, "Look, sem kadai e kadai." And I had never noticed this. I recently noticed and went to search on Google what it means. Kadai means problem. In other words, not having a problem is the biggest problem. No problem is a problem. Problems have to appear. And this way of thinking has been applied in various businesses already in the automotive industry, like Toyota. And this has spread to many places. But also, as you can see, in aviation, Embraer. And I brought examples from Brazil, okay? Because I'm not talking about Japan. Because when we talk about Japan, people say, "Oh, but in Japan it's easy. The Japanese are disciplined, methodical." No. Here, Brazil. At Camargo Correa, with civil construction, is there a business more difficult to organize than civil construction? With more waste? With more inefficiency? It can be done. In hospitals, which deal with lives. In machines, right? Equipment factories. At Case Tejado, there is a lean project too. And all of this that I will show you now in these next three classes was not created by me, right? It actually comes from Toyota. It actually comes from a series of people who have been developing a way to manage the business for almost 100 years, a way to empower people, a way to develop people that is generating this result. Not only at Toyota, but in many places. And I wanted to highlight two key people here at the end of this story, right? Knowing the history of this is very interesting, and I invite you to delve deeper later for those who are interested. But Paulo Machado, who was the person I mentioned at the beginning of the class, whom I worked with for many years, who was my great teacher, my great sensei in Japanese, and also Paul Akers, who is an American entrepreneur that today I believe has one of the companies with managerial maturity closest to what Toyota has been doing worldwide. He works and has been teaching many people. These are people I had the opportunity to interact with personally. Professor Paulo for many years, Paul Akers many times, due to the distance, but a few times I had the chance to talk in person, and we communicate frequently. And I want to share a bit of what these people have been doing so you can incorporate it into your business. The big thing is that producing cars is one thing. Producing corn, soybeans, carrots, garlic, lettuce, tomatoes is another thing. We are much more exposed to the vagaries of the weather, right? Our business is not so controlled. Anything can impact my business, and I have no control over it. This is a big difference, really, I agree. But of course, if Toyota produced cars in the open air, it would also be difficult. But there are two important differences here. First, we are talking about a plant, a living organism, biological processes. The car does not assemble itself. If there isn't a person there putting the wheel on the car, installing the engine, it does not assemble itself. The corn seed, when I put it in the ground, it starts to grow on its own. Of course, it needs to have the necessary conditions, but that's the point. Our role is to provide the conditions for it to grow on its own, so that we don't interfere with the process. The process, the value chain. What does the value chain mean? It's taking something my customer doesn't want and turning it into something they value. Toyota takes steel sheets, rubber, electronic components, and I don't want to buy that. I have no use for a steel sheet. But they turn it into a car, and I want to have a car. I need a car to solve my problems. On the farm, we do the same thing. We take soil, fertilizer, seeds, and transform them into food, transform them into energy, transform them into fiber. This is our value chain. But in agriculture, this value chain is biological, and our role is to support it, to ensure that I provide what the plant needs when it needs it, in the way it needs it. And the one who tells me the right time is the plant itself. This is the first big difference. The second difference, and very important, is that on a car assembly line, if, for example, a weld on the chassis is poorly done, and people do not notice this problem quickly, and paint the car, install the engine, assemble the car, and at the end of the production line, someone comes to evaluate and sees that the car is unbalanced and cannot be balanced, this car can be disassembled and can be fixed. This is a great waste. A great waste because this car is costing much more than it should. That's why one of the pillars of Toyota is to ensure that problems not only appear, but appear quickly and are identified quickly. And we saw this happening there at the factory. A quick side note, a little story here. There was a person with a clipboard in hand with a drawing of a car full of little dots, like this, points. And he had a little hammer and was tapping on the car chassis. Like this. The chassis had just been welded. He was tapping on the car chassis. Then at one point he tapped, paused, tapped again with the little hammer, paused, pressed a red button, and the production line stopped. The guy said, "Did you see what just happened?" He just identified a problem, and he has the authority and responsibility to pull the cord. Stop the production line to fix that problem before the car moves forward, to not push the defect forward. And moreover, they now have to assess what happened and why that weld was poorly done, what the cause was, to ensure that the next cars do not have the same problem. Look at the way of thinking. Very well, in agriculture, what happens? If my plant has some kind of problem during its phenological cycle along this value chain, I can't stop the process. I can't pull the cord and say, "Plant, hold on a little bit. Because this week there will be no rain, hold on a bit." There's no way. If I don't do what the plant wants when it wants and push a defect forward, in the end, I can't fix it. Understanding these two things, that I need to ensure I don't push defects forward and that operations have to happen at the right time and in the right way, we will start designing our management system within the farm. And many people have been doing this in agriculture. Just like many people are doing in other industries, we have been doing it in agriculture, and seeing many producers and leaders doing this with mastery, I will tell you some cases. The big thing is that we start to produce a very high production capacity. We buy a seed with enormous genetic potential. But along this value chain, throughout the phenological cycle, we push forward a cracked chassis, push forward a crooked engine, push forward defective bodywork. We start planting, and then there's a failure in soil preparation, then a failure in planting, then pest attacks, then fertility spots, irrigation spots, losses at harvest. And every time I push a defect forward, my productive potential decreases. And in the end, I harvest much less than I could be harvesting. But I'm sure that those of you watching know exactly what needs to be done to prevent these problems from happening. We have knowledge, technical and agronomic knowledge, to solve these problems. There is no lack of knowledge. What is lacking is our managerial ability to actually put this technique into practice in our businesses. We need a management system that makes things happen, in fact, at the right time, in the right way, without pushing defects forward. And based on the Toyota model and this agronomic knowledge, we developed what we call management-oriented to the phenological cycle. A management that looks at this value chain as the core of the business. And all the people are there to serve these plants, to serve this value chain, to ensure that the plant has the necessary support to meet the customer. Who is the main stakeholder in our business? Who is up here? While the operators are serving the plants to meet the customer's needs, the leaders are here to serve the people. The owner is here to serve the leader. People do not work for the boss. People work for the customer. Remember Toyota's phrase? Make good cars. Focus on the customer. We have to make people focus on the customer. And for that, Toyota systematized this in the form of a little house, in this model of the little house. And I will now detail this in the next two classes, showing how this applies to the reality of agriculture. The roof of the little house is the customer. Focus on the customer. Customer first. And this little house I'm showing you is really the model that Toyota uses. The only change we made was to add this slab here in the house. See? We place the phenological cycle here in the middle because it is fundamental to understand the phenology of the plants. Understanding this biological value chain is essential for me to set up this system. And this here, look, is a photo of us on this visit to Toyota. Under the little house with our cooperatives, farmers, learning to take this to their own businesses. So in our next class, I will show you a little more of this little house. See you soon.